Creativity and business seems like something that would be consistently at odds with each other. Left brain, right brain. But what happens when those things start working together? What happens when they live harmoniously rather than dissonantly? Let's go through some concepts that help me overcome a lot of those issues and actually lead a creative business in creativity. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Treemoss here. Today I wanted to get into something that is a little bit heavy of a subject. It pretty much tore me apart when starting doing work professionally. Have you ever found like creative energy and energy required to run a business feel like polar opposite? That struggle absolutely tore me apart for the first 2 to 3 years of trying to make my creativity a professional one. I know it's a constant struggle for people now, and it's still one for myself. I feel like those two types of energies really are at odds with each other pretty often, if not all the time. So let's break down what creative energy really is, and on the other side of that coin is what's needed to run a business. So creative energy is something that we all have as human beings. We all understand what it's like to be creative. Some people explore that world a lot more than others, but even the most analytical person is still a creative one. That type of energy is harnessing the power of now and giving into it to its full extent, fully trusting what your intuition is guiding you to do. I look at that in the context of a musician more often. The power that comes through you as the vessel to perform or create on, let's say, guitar or inside of writing music is an extremely powerful one. And it's one that is very scary for some because it's giving into now and not necessarily preparing a whole lot for it. Now, obviously, there's exceptions to these rules where people prepare things all the time and they are in a creative space. I'm more or less looking at the energy associated with creativity. Creative energy is living in the here and now and accessing that whenever it becomes available, and then with enough time you could summon that energy. I feel like, in my experience, of course, some people are not going to feel this way. Some people will absolutely understand what I'm saying. This is at odds with what's needed to run a business. Now, yes, your gut instinct on running a business is usually in trusting our opportunities coming up that may feel like you need a bit of gut intuition to make a decision. But 9 times out of 10, you're really preparing to be in that situation. That situation calls for preparation, and it calls for tons of planning before you get to that point. You don't often find yourself in business just releasing control to the business energy. Like, right, that doesn't really make sense. So these two things are really at odds with each other. The business side of things require you to plan and prepare and do things with the future in mind, as opposed to creativity, which really flourishes in the face of the here and now. So how do you go about navigating both of those things and putting them together? It feels like it's quite overwhelming whenever you have to wear too many hats at one time in order to feel successful in a creative business. In my experience, this has been a massive at odds feeling where that struggle was just the tallest mountain to climb. It really became a problem at one point. It always felt like I wanted to be in the here and now so I can create, but I knew I needed to prepare. So one hindered the other and vice versa. It was really difficult to plan when I wanted to live in the here and now in order to create. So it felt like I had to shift gears a lot, really often. That struggle alone led to either not being able to plan enough or looking at the here and now and trying to plan for it, which is really difficult to understand a balance between those two things. And yes, some creative businesses just hit it right out of the gate because the product or the thing that they're designing, whatever they're doing, is actually just that good that it just blows up, and we kind of make our own luck in that way. But I promise you, it took a ton of preparation to make that happen. How do you navigate those waters? What do you need to do in order to see some success in a creative business or a business that's creative? I see those as two totally different things. A creative business is one that provides creativity as a service or a product, and a business that is creative is a business that does things in a creative way. Now, that could apply to both, but at the same time, they're not the same thing. So what are you trying to do? What am I trying to do? Am I trying to lead with a creative business, or am I trying to create opportunities in business through creativity? And I think that's probably one of the most important things to understand early on. It may seem pretty obvious for some at first, where if I'm a graphic designer, I'm obviously leading a creative business. A graphic designer who's supplying a creativity-based service could also be running a business that's creative. So for instance, a graphic designer who supplies that type of service could be absolutely creative in how they run their business as well. Looking at it from that perspective may help how to navigate the multiple hat wearing scenarios, or when you're at odds with what is necessary for me right now. What do we need to ask ourselves? Am I making a business decision right now, or am I making a creative one? And spending enough time in that energy allows us to not only call upon it when necessary, which is a whole nother thing, it allows us to understand what's needed from us right now. Just because I'm a graphic designer, or just because you're in a creative field, does not mean people are willing to pay you for that. Even if you're the world's best graphic designer or the world's best musician or whatever, right? It does not mean that you're in demand. If you don't create the opportunities for yourself to be in demand, then that talent you have is only for you. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with having a talent just for yourself. But in business, it looks a little different. You need to have some demand. So how do you create that demand? That's where the business planning comes in. That's where the creativity also comes in. It's a complex situation to be in. It will rack your brain. That's part of it. Truly where the magic is. Whenever the creativity fuels the business decisions, and the business decisions fuel the creativity. When we look on the surface, these things are very, very at odds with each other, but actually they complement each other profoundly. Spending more time with what's needed just helps a ton with that process. So if you're an illustrator, if you're a graphic designer, if you're a web designer, you're a musician, you create products, you create services. That's a beautiful thing. But as soon as you want it to be for other people, that's where I have to say you have to draw a line in the sand. Then it becomes a business, as in it needs to become transactional for it to see some success. Yes, you could run a business and anyone can, but it doesn't mean it's going to work or be successful. Next time you're in a position where you're not sure which energy to summon, or next time you're in a position where you feel at odds with yourself, because I'm trying to do something creative, but I don't know how to do it for other people, just take a step back. Remind yourself, which hat am I wearing right now? Which one what am I calling upon right now? Who am I accessing? That separation is a good place to start. But in the end, it's all one hat at the same time. You start to pick up and develop new ways of thinking once we start to recognize exactly what's happening. It's the most divisive thing to have to go through, especially when you don't really have guidance or a support system who understands what you're going through. This is why I'm making this. This is exactly why I'm doing this channel. That's why treemoss.creates exists in the first place, is this is my experience and this is what helped me get through it. The easiest way to think about this is what's needed of me right now versus what's needed of me in the future. What am I serving, myself, or am I serving others? Because a business really does, it needs to serve others to exist. So the creativity part of this really comes from how do I serve myself and let it just flow through me, as opposed to the business aspect of it is more in line with how am I serving others and how are they discovering me? How am I connecting with the ones who I am for? And this has made a profound difference in my life, for sure, but it's also made profound differences across the board. That this is a universal truth. It requires both energies. If someone was in business only for the money, there's a very good chance that business does not exist without the creativity. There has to be a level of creativity to them in order to appeal. That's what's necessary from you. That's what's necessary from us creatives. That's why we're so valuable in industry. Business tycoons or business people typically don't access that creative side of them nearly as much. I mean, literally in marketing, the part that the audience sees and reads is called the creative. It's really on the nose. I just felt like this was something that I needed to make, and if it helps someone out there, let me know. Sound off in the comments. Tell me if you've had that struggle between what am I needing to access right now? Am I stuck in a creative loop? Do I have this giant block? Or I don't know how to put myself out there. I'm not quite sure on how to connect with my audience, and it's pulling you in two different directions. It doesn't look very good to wear two different hats at the same time. So let's just make it one hat. The way to do that is through powering through that experience, and also just knowing that on the other side, you're trusting that instinct of yours. You're trusting that gut. This seems like a classic left brain, right brain scenario where some people really live in one world and others live in the other. And it takes both to run effectively. This is exactly what the creative side of business looks like and the business being creative in itself. I know a lot of people out there struggle between which hat should I be wearing here. Let us know in the comments down below how you got past that. What's the biggest part of you that you were able to overcome? Because you were. Even if it didn't feel like it, you did. Really appreciate you guys tuning in. It means the world to me that y'all been coming through on the YouTube channel. It's really awesome to see y'all commenting and just embracing me on the platform. It's really something special. If you like this video, I have a whole nother one on how to overcome one of the most difficult things in my career and just creative life when getting a massive creative block. This was the biggest thing that was stopping me from moving forward. So if you'd like to check that out, I'll have that listed at the end of the video. And coming up soon is going to be us working on a little bit more of these cool VHS CRT graphics. Please leave a like, subscribe. I really appreciate you guys tuning in. I'll see you next time.